So I've already got some templates laid out. As you can see, I've drawn the boxes. And for the purpose of this, I'm drawing on a much larger scale, just so it's easier to see than you will. I start by drawing myself some guidelines. And really, this is about the main points of the chair. And this is for scale and proportion to make sure I have that right. So really, in this case, the top of the chair, the arms, and the bottom of the feet. Now, remember, we're not going to see this whole chair that we see in this picture. And I've drawn myself a center line because usually that helps just kind of orient yourself and make sure everything's balanced. So I start off by kind of sketching in, roughing in the arms because they're sort of a central part and everything is, I can base everything off of where they're located. And if you don't have a picture to draw from, especially if you're doing a new design and you're trying to explain to somebody as you might be doing live, then you really want to make sure you're getting the design points across. And my technique is rather sketchy, and that's okay. I have a loose technique. Everybody's going to have their own technique, and you don't have to be an artist. You just have to get your design intent across. So why this chair versus another chair, for example. So I kind of ground myself with drawing the bottom piece of the chair, and I notice that the arms come down all of the way, whereas the bottom starts in the inside of where the arms are. Now the back of my chair, I'm exaggerating it a little bit, and I also notice that the corners of the chair have some rounded edges, so I'm gonna tighten those up a little bit. And as you go, again, I like to do it rough and then come back in and make my sketch a little bit more clear. So I'm going to draw the legs. I'm thinking about where they start, where they end. If you want to draw a straight line, sometimes it helps to move your eye to the end point and perhaps even draw a point and then draw your line from the starting to the ending point. It's hard to draw straight lines on camera, of course, and I don't want to see you really take out a ruler. Sketches are supposed to be sketches and beautiful. As long as they're clean and neat, that's really what's important. So now I'm going to take my marker, and you can see I filled the frame. I'm following the rules of my first visual expression module. And I'm going to come in and just fill things out. So I'm doing the cushion here, again, a little bit roughly, but just to give the idea, the seam. And when you come back with a pen, it's a chance to fix little mistakes. I like to use an eraser as I'm going, because once you mess up in pen, then you have to do it over again. And that means sometimes doing the pencil sketch over. Of course, you could always trace over your sketch. So as I'm sketching, I'm looking to see if everything looks balanced and looks right. And again, if you're not looking at a drawing, you're drawing something completely new, then you'll want to just make sure it's expressing what you want to express. And it depends what the situation is, what you might need to express. So remember that I can see both sets of legs, but they look like they're next to each other when I'm looking at the front view of the chair. And then I add in little details of the feet. The next thing I'm going to do is take my triangle and just label this, hand label very neatly. I've drawn some guidelines in advance, so I'm going to draw front view with my triangle. And this is not something you have to do. You can do very neat lettering, but if you want to practice, it gives a nice human touch to your drawing. So the next thing I would do would be to erase the lines or trace over this without the boxes and try to have a nice clean sketch. So from there, we're going to do the section of the front view. And when we think about doing the section, we're actually going to take this drawing, which again, if I look at both sides, then I can tell that I'm using this for the section and where I'm cutting the chair. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to use this drawing underneath of my other drawing to draw the section of what I want to see. So we're going to trace over my front view to get the section, and think about what you're seeing and what you're not going to see. So the back of the chair will look the same with the seam, and then the arms of the chair and the section and the cushion section will be where I'm actually cutting through the chair essentially. And I'll only see the back two legs because I'm cutting the chair in the middle of the chair. And as I rough this in, that's where I'll start to think about where my hatching goes, where I'm actually cutting the chair. And I'm going to move to pen pretty quickly on this because I think you get the idea. So again, I'm roughing things in, and as I do this, I notice some things. about the section, and I want to make sure very neatly I'm cross-hatching. And you'll want to do this a lot more slowly than I'm doing. But again, I think you get the idea, and so you can see the sketch a little bit better when I bring the pen to it. So again, the back of the chair looks the same. We haven't cut through that. And then from the leg standpoint, I see the whole legs. I'm not cutting through them because they're behind the point at which I'm cutting through. So that would be your section view. And then what you want to do is check over your sketch, see if it looks right, if it feels right, if there's anything I've missed. I might do a little darker cross-hatching on some of the other areas just to distinguish them from each other. And that's pretty much your section view. So now we're going to do the side view, and the side view is much easier because we're used to looking at things from the side view and they're already essentially flattened out, though I won't see the opposite arm. I'll just see the front arm. So I start off with, again, just roughing in the basics of the chair, and for me just getting kind of an outline of it is a good way for me to start, just to make sure everything's in the right place and then I don't have to adjust everything. So I start to see some of the details of the back of the chair and where the back of the chair and where I put my head is actually gonna intersect with the arm of the chair. So, and I see the cushion, so I want to draw that in. And I see that the cushion is about halfway up to the arm of the chair. And those are the kinds of measurements you want to do with your eyes to observe the scale of something to something else and the proportion. So that's really what's important here, especially if you're trying to communicate something to someone. So, for example, I might want to say this is a really comfortable cushion, it's nice and thick, and show that it goes halfway up the arms, or the fact that it has a cushion in the first place. So again, I start to see some of the details as I fill things in. And remember, I'm only going to see one set of legs because from the side view, the other set would be directly behind them, so you actually wouldn't see them. And again, for those of you who are new to drawing, this takes a little practice to get used to exactly what you're seeing from each view. So don't worry about it if you think it doesn't look right or whatever. You know, get it to the point you can, and then your peers will give you feedback. So again, I'm just going to trace over this so it's easier for you to see the side view, and you'll pick some interesting chairs which may have some interesting details. Again, the techniques that we're showing here can be used for any chair, and draw any chair that you like or a new chair that you envision designing as a result of this exercise. So once that's filled in, again, I would go ahead and label my drawing. So we're not going to do the section, we're going to skip right to the top. And the top view is often the hardest one to draw because it's one that we're not used to looking at least from a chair. You're not usually standing over a chair thinking about it that way. So again, I'm going to sketch out sort of the back of the chair, and most chairs you will see sort of this top. So imagine looking down at the chair, you would just see that rectangle. I'm going to think about where the arms are in relation to the back, and I really want to think about how wide that back is, especially in relation to the arms. Again, those are the kinds of things you're trying to portray, is relation of parts of one piece to another. So the arms to the back of the chair would be something that's interesting, and in this case the chair has skinny arms, and that might be something desirable or not. I can see that the cushion kind of comes out from where the arms are, so that's an important detail. Again, I'm looking to my reference drawing, but if you don't have a reference drawing, think about really what you see and what you want to express someone to see. And I notice that as I go on a second pass that I'm a little short on one side and a little long on the other, so I make those adjustments and go over things, and you want to just make sure that everything looks right, and sometimes if it doesn't look right, then you'll see that. So again, I'm just going over with pencil. I'm drawing some of the rounded edges of the chair, and again, your lines don't have to be straight, and even when you're sketching, sometimes it's better that your lines aren't straight intentionally, so that it'll look intentional. And there you go, there's the top view.